Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good day to all from wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. I'll be the host for the webinar. My name is Vincent, and in this webinar, we are going to diving deep into the heart of the lead gen woos and revealing the key roadblocks that might be hindering your success. Whether you are a seasoned marketer, a business owner, or someone, just give me one sec, let me just admit them. For someone just starting out in this business, this webinar is your golden opportunity to gain insights that will redefine your lead generation strategy. And I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Setareh Motamedi. Setareh is a full stack growth marketer and a brand builder. She started her career in sales at AT&T, managing the top 2% of the sales force. She later took a position managing the launch of the first iPhone. After a successful sales run, she served as senior product manager at Sony. Wanting to get back to marketing, Setareh played a key executive roles at Fortune 500 companies such as Tata. And she found her passion in rapidly growing and executing multi-million dollar revenue driving campaigns for several startups that experienced explosive growth from Fuel Cycle to Bambi and Bright Edge, all who are category leaders in their industries. As a demand gen marketer, Setareh has experience in sales, product, and demand generation, has led her to become a skilled marketer, transforming the way marketing departments work. I hope I bring justice to your work experience at Ida, but if you would like to add more, please feel free to do so.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Vince. You actually made me sound a lot cooler than I am, so thank you for that.
Great. All right, so since today we will be discussing about the roadblocks that the marketers would like to ensure that they could be able to get most out of this webinar. So let's start with kicking off this the question of what do you think are the most effective marketing channels for communicating with a target or potential customers?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and I actually really love it because my answer has always remained the same for the past few years, and that's SEO. SEO is actually arguably the most effective channel, and I'll give you 4 reasons why. So first, it's sustainable, right? The opportunity for growth doesn't cap. So you can always improve rank, you can optimize content, so on, right? Endless opportunities. Second, it does not require a large budget aside from an SEO tool, which there's many cost-effective ones. Google Ads and like other paid media sources, that performance is contingent on your budget, right? You have the ability to spend more money, you'll be shown more. But what really happens when that budget gets cut, then so does your digital presence, right? Third, according to the latest data actually from HubSpot, their State of Marketing Research report, which I love their content, and I agree with, it's that consumers trust organic search results over paid and sponsored ads. So really think about that for a second as a marketer, right? And last, with SEO, you can actually target any persona in any industry. You just need to develop the right content with the right keywords, tone, and language to match the verticals. And essentially the Google algorithm, the whole entire foundation of that is based on organic and technical SEO. So in your organization, if you can really get these 2 things right, SEO and technical SEO, your opportunities are endless, right? And you will completely reap the benefits. So in my opinion, SEO is arguably the most effective channel.
Yep, I agree. And with the changing landscape, I'm also curious about because a lot of organizations right now are trying to cut budget just to make sure that they will be able to serve and market their product and services. But what do you believe should be the company should do in terms of targeting a broader audience? Does the business have to target a highly targeted channels, or do you believe that they have to go with a broader range of channels to reach their target market?
Yeah, so my answer to that is neither. You actually need both. So there's 2 words that really matter, okay? Capturing demand and creating demand. And those are 2 very different things, right? So think about it. Only 1 to 3% of the market is in buying cycle at any given moment, right? So if you're only targeting the buying segment, you'll be asking yourself, why aren't we bringing in more revenue? Why aren't we closing more deals? Well, this is because your active buying universe is really small, right? Marketing to this small buying group is capturing demand, and it's very highly targeted. Now, the other 97 to 99%, right? That's not an active buying cycle. It's all about creating the demand, broader channels, broader audience, right? So this segment is not actively buying, but when they are, if you're creating that demand actively and correctly, guess who's going to be front of mind? Yeah, your brain, right? So research actually from Bain & Co., the latest research, also shows that consumers have made 80% of their buying decision. 80%, huge number, right? When they reach you. And almost 90% of that choice has already been narrowed down to just 2 brands, right? Consumers are extremely smart. We live in an on-demand world. They can access any information at any time. So they're doing their due diligence before they even get to narrowing down a vendor list, right? So most companies only focus on capturing existing demand, right? They wait for people to look at them. They spend time and money fighting over the small portion of the market that's actually buying. And it works great until it maxes out or until your competitor beats you at creating demand. And much of your upside in marketing to that 99% that isn't actively buying is the most critical part of your strategy, right? Your goal here is to create awareness, to drive differentiation, to influence that product consideration. So you can be one of those 2 to 3 vendors on the final list.
Right.
They facilitate their journey, right? To actually create the demand. If you just wait until you're in buy mode, you've already lost, right? You're already late to the game. So you want to really engage customers and win way earlier in the buying process. And my recommendation to, the several companies that I have worked with and done consulting for is a big metric for any business and any marketing department should be you need to be the best at creating demand. And remember, creating demand is that 97 to 99%. So you actually need both, but both, I will underscore, are critically important.
Well, thanks for sharing, Connie, and that's there. I think that makes sense because right now, a lot of organizations, if they don't capture the customers at the early buying process, they might be running late, establishing contacts with the customers. All right, that is a good number that you show there. But in terms of what do you think should be the business should do in terms of matching the preferences with their target customers? Because as we know, the buying journey is very complex now. So how should the business do that in a different way?
Yeah, I'm actually very passionate about this answer because I lived and breathed it at Fuel Cycle, which I was the VP of marketing for, and they were a market research solution. So we worked with several Fortune 500 and 100 brands, really seeking to answer this one question, right? Those 2 words is qualitative research. If you are not talking to your customers on a regular basis, whether it's the marketing team, the product team, or whatever part of the organization, it is a huge missed opportunity. Another factor, right, I'll underscore here is that a lot of data is quantitative, right? But there should not be a marketing department that functions without qual and quant data. Measuring the success of growth marketing, for example, right, it really takes both. Subjective insights like behaviors, experiences, that will inform strategy that data cannot capture. There is simply no tool that is able to capture that unless you are speaking to your customers directly. So right. Here, I would choose a handful of customers to speak with on a monthly basis. You can build an advisory board, get on calls with them. You can run focus groups. Because subjective behaviors and insights and experiences will literally inform your strategy that data cannot simply capture. So both are critical, but with the software and attribution challenges there are, I would really highly recommend to any business that you are feet on the street and you are speaking to your customers, you are hearing it from the horse's mouth, and the feedback that they give you, I will guarantee will completely transform the way you run your marketing department or the way you run your business. Because I will tell you from a marketing perspective, and I've learned this lesson the hard way many times, that perception is not always reality. So get in there, get in the weeds, talk to your customers, and let them know they're part of building this experience with you.
100%. I agree with that. Thanks for that. I like the way he said perception is not the reality, and sometimes we have to build that with the customer in order for us to bridge that kind of thing that the customer is looking for us. Now, I'd like also to understand, because I've been hearing a lot of organizations, especially in the B2B sites, that you need to capture quality leads, and this kind of quality has to go over some kind of criteria. But based on your experience, how would you define quality leads? And then if you could be able also to provide criteria that should determine how we're going to meet this kind of criteria, if you will.
Yeah, so if you asked me this question a few years ago, my answer would have been completely different than it is today. But I have a very different belief and strategy around this question, but it really works like a charm, especially for, mid-market and enterprise organizations. So as a modern marketer, if you are truly looking at the data, you will see the days of MQLs and SQLs are just simply gone. If you're measuring only on MQLs, that incentivizes the marketing team to get the most volume of MQLs at the lowest cost. But the problem with that is that type of thinking is entirely misaligned with sales productivity and sales goals. So you have marketing saying, yes, I've hit 100% of my MQL goal, but then none of those MQLs actually close. So then you have sales at the bottom of the pipeline saying, well, I got 100 leads, but none of them are really good, right? So sure, we want to still use that metric, right? But to me, that's really become a vanity metric. First, I want to clear up what the definition of a quality lead is, in my experience. So to me, that is high intent revenue pipeline, okay? Your only criteria for a sales lead should be sales velocity and marketing booked revenue. So how a lead actually enters your pipeline is really the biggest predictor of sales velocity metrics. So those can be your win rates, those can be your sales cycles, those can even be ACVs, right? But how they enter your pipeline is a surrogate for buying intent and an indicator of how far they are completed in the buying process, right? So a couple examples of how you would actually want to measure that to drive your revenue strategy, right? So one, you can measure the opportunity in Salesforce, right? Or whatever tool you use. You're looking at the opportunity record. So that means I'm looking at the campaigns and what campaign did they convert onto and when did they move into an opportunity, right? And from what? Is it a demo request? Was it an ebook? Was it a cold call? Was it a trade show, right? You also want to dig one layer deeper and you want to look at the source and channel. So what channel did they come from? Was it a LinkedIn ad? Was it SEO? Was it account intent data, right? The second part of that is you want to calculate your PV, right? And what that is win rate times your sales qualified opportunities created times your ACV. And you want to take that and divide it by your sales cycle, right? So 91 days, because this is when you start to see a payback period. So if you use both of those data points and combine them, it will literally guide your whole entire strategy, because these two factors put together will show you your optimal path to what I said earlier, right? Which is capturing that demand. And it's easily measurable in this case using software-based attribution, so you can actually be very precise. So to me, winning formula.
That sounds good for me. Yeah, let me take one. I've seen one good questions raised by one of our audience, Setareh. Let me take the answers for you. The question is going to be how do we follow up with the potential customers who didn't show interest in the first place when we approached, but somehow engaged with the company's content many times? What channels would be the right choice to approach the prospect again?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, right? I think if you're kind of looking at a multi-channel marketing approach, the answer can be a little bit, fully loaded, right?
Right.
But and it also kind of depends on, the marketing channels that you're looking at, right? So there's two channels that I think can still be used, but strategy needs to be refined here in terms of follow-up, right? So one of them is LinkedIn, right? Gone are the days of sending a request to connect. A cheesy note saying, thank you for connecting, Setareh, now let's network. And that person only turns around 1 to 24 hours later to tell you all about what they do and why you should get on the phone with them, right? So the mistake here is that you have offered no value to me or a true reason to actually speak with you. So the second mistake is your notes or your follow-up is a mass blast, right? That means no personalization, and you have done zero homework to really discover what's going on in our organization, what's going on with our brand, but you're asking me to give you 20 to 45 minutes of my valuable time. So if you're going to use LinkedIn for follow-up, remember these rules of engagement, right? So be authentic and be genuine. Be a little bit humorous. Do your homework and show me that you understand my brand and you understand my analytics. You understand what's going on. You've read some of the blogs. You've participated in, digesting some of the content, right? And if you follow up with me and you say something like, did you know competitor X has 50% of the market share of X, and by focusing on 1, 2, 3, we can grow that metric for you, and here's how. Now you have my attention a little bit more, and that's much more different, right? Than, hey, Setareh, see how we can help Fortune 500 companies get 100 appointments a week. Can I show you how? That to me built no value, right? Second part of that is cold emails. Still a very popular channel for follow-up. And the critique here is really similar to what I just mentioned. So here's an idea. Instead of sending a cold email talking about yourself and your company, it takes 2 minutes to record a video. Record a video for me about my business, my upside, my opportunities. And that effort will set you apart from reading plain text emails all day and another one, right? Because my inbox is filled with these. So instead of continuing to ask a prospect, what time works for you? When can we sync? And they have not been responsive, you should just say, where would you like to go from here? Doesn't that sound a little bit more polished? Well, at least I think so, right? So if you're still trying to chase down your customer and you follow up with, hey, Setareh, I was thinking back to our conversation, and if we can truly help you, I want to save both of us time and money. Can you tell me a little bit more about your product or your service to see if we're really aligned? We've done it for similar companies like X and X, right, in your space. But to understand your business, I want to dive a little bit deeper to see if we can truly be a partner. See the difference in that tone, right? One is of inspiration. I've been following up with you and I haven't heard back from you. When do you want to meet? Let's talk, right? Versus, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I want to learn a little bit more about your business to see if we can truly help you and even partner together. There's a really big difference because that's removed the pressure. That's removed a lot of the desperation in the tone, and that's removed the pressure from the prospect feeling like they have to sit through, a demo or a conversation with you when they truly have no intention of buying. So big difference. And these are two channels where it's really critical that you have to perfect the tone in which you are doing the outreach and the creative way in which you are doing your outreach.
Very nice. Yeah, talking about being having personalization with the customers. If we knew nothing about the customers, we're not be able to connect somehow with the customer. And sometimes, just like what you said, the customers' preferences have changed now. So we want to make sure that we covered all the bases prior we reach out to the customers. Very nice, thank you. All right. I also shared a lot of things that that content is the king, and I still believe is. But with the changing landscape, what do you think content marketing play in terms of qualifying, generating leads, and in what ways do you think businesses should optimize how they write content, how should they engage with their potential or attract their target market, if you will?
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Vince. Content still is king. It was a few years ago, it is today, and it will be for the future, right? So content will make or break you, right? It's your voice of engagement, it's the value to your brand, it's your perception. So businesses need to optimize their content in a way that works well for them. This is not a one size fits all approach. So if you are a B2C brand, you should focus on visual aspects, show engagement around your product, right? Influencers are a big part of this, right? If you are a B2B brand, your content should be all about thought leadership, period. By thought leadership, I mean every blog, every website page, those should all be adding value to solve a pain point, to teach something, or to deliver an aha moment where someone says, aha, yes, they understand me, or wow, I never thought of that. So I'll come back to HubSpot's State of Market Research report for a second. They found that the number one channel that is delivering ROI is blogs, social media, and influencer marketing. So think about that for a second. That's a very big change over the last 5-10 years. So if I'm looking at the results of that data, that tells me a couple things. So one, it tells me that authenticity and connection are on the rise. People want authentic content that they can learn from, that they can engage with. And if you look at the other set of data, right, you'll see that trust in ads is dwindling. So paid channels like Google Ads, they continue to dwindle. Now you still need that visibility, right? And for some businesses, it's a quick win. But if you truly start to uncover what type of content your consumer likes to digest, you can look at things like starting a podcast, posting valuable tips on LinkedIn, being a thought leader, offering to guest blog on a publication that is either near and dear to your business or within the same industry, same vertical, write a blog post yourself. And all these things are very cost-effective channels, right? It doesn't take anything to write. You can start a podcast for nearly virtually free, right? And no dollars here. So you really have to understand, and it's completely okay to ask your customers, how do you like to consume content? What are the channels that you like to learn most in? Right? And take the results of those, which is the qual that I mentioned earlier, qual data, marry those two together with a content strategy, and you have your golden winning formula.
Yeah, I like what you said, that content is the voice of engagement you have with the customer, which is very true. It's the way how you convey and communicate with your target market. And it has to be very targeted and precisely based on your customer needs and pain points. I like that. All right. Yeah, one of the things that I've done also as a growth executive is I really wanted to make sure that customers really click on the email that I sent to them, either on the blog that we create or either on the email. So I'd like also to get your idea about, in terms of creating an email that has a very compelling CTA or call to action, what would you recommend in terms of driving conversations, and how should this kind of engagement will impact the overall success of either sales or marketing campaigns?
Yeah. So this is very critical, right? And it's email, yes, but it's also CTAs on any of your content. It's CTAs on your website. So over the years, I've helped hundreds of brands redesign their websites. And the number one mistake that I see is made on their homepage or their primary website, right? So usually it's in the banner, which is the very top of the page. And or I've even scrolled, you are asking me for a demo, you are asking me to speak to a salesperson, or you are asking me to book an appointment. That to me is like going into a store that you have not been into before, but someone standing outside and asking you for a commitment on speaking to them before you enter in the store, and they're trying to sell you an item that's inside, but you truly don't know what items are inside or maybe even what you need, right? So it doesn't make sense if you think about it with a little bit of a different lens. So your CTAs need to match your customer journey. Your UX and UI is key here. So what brands and businesses need to think about is focusing on the softer CTAs very early on in your customer journey. So these are things like learn more, discover, watch a product tour, and specifically if you're a mid-market or an enterprise business, watch a product tour is one of the most highly converting CTAs. I actually ran a couple different experiments with watch a product tour, and we had a 97% conversion rate, and we deprioritized all other CTAs. So there was no speak to sales, there was no demo, there was none of that. So what we saw is that just a minor change on a CTA on high traffic pages doubled those conversions. And those actually led to better conversations with sales, which means reduced sales cycles, higher close rates. And on that one example that I just gave you, right, where we actually reduced all of the other CTAs, we saw a 4x increase in sales cycles and deals closing earlier. And like I said, 97% close rate just by simply changing a few words on a demo, right? Because nobody wants the pressure of having to sit through something without fully understanding what the value of that is. So go back to your websites, go back to your emails, go back to your content and just say, if I know nothing about my business and I am a prospect, does it make sense that before they even know what value I can bring to them, I'm asking for their time? So the answer to that is no, but the good news is you have every tool in your tool belt and some of the examples that I just mentioned to be able to change that.
That's a very good advice, Setareh. I really like that. I think we could be able also to have, I think we just realized now that all the things that we're doing back then is actually something that we could also improve somewhere in the process. But thanks for sharing that. All right. When it comes to the multi-channel marketing approach, I think most of the businesses would like to test the water, make some adjustment on their strategies to ensure that their messaging actually miss or hit their target market. But based on your experience, if you're going to advise them in terms of creating strategies that would really hit the market or their target market, how would you send this kind of how would you be able to put this kind of strategy across different platforms and campaigns?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot around, well, I want my message to be consistent. I want my value props to, be consistent. So here's the truth in that is you should have a tagline or you should have a value prop for each channel that is a play or a minor change on your primary tagline. So ask yourself, does this message or tagline or headline, does it work for the Twitter audience, right? Because, for example, the Twitter audience, the content needs to be short and it needs to be punchy. Or does my tagline or my messaging here sound a little bit ambiguous for a platform like Instagram that's all visual based? How can I translate my message and my tagline into a visual design on a platform like Instagram, right? So marketers often think in silos, but consistent messaging does not mean the same words. It means evoking emotion, right? The same emotion, or conveying the concept of your brand or your value. So get a little team together, make a spreadsheet of all of the channels you are currently in. That's step one. Step two is, what is your messaging in those channels currently? Step three, how's it working? That's your key right there. And last, what are some alternative options to messaging in which I can improve or change that message? And I can likely bet that you will realize each of those channels have almost the same message, which is the opposite of what should be happening. And this is an exercise that I run through in every organization I have been in or that I have consulted in, right? And it's a very simple exercise, but it is an extremely powerful one. So I highly encourage that as a takeaway.
Thanks for that, Setareh. I really appreciate your context and the process and context of that. All right. I know we've talked about earlier about the changing dynamics of the sales and marketing, and then how should the business should adapt to those changes, if you will. But one of the things that I've noticed over time is some organizations are trying to compromise the brand values. Sometimes they over communicate, sometimes they oversell, and it reflects the way the business does business. Now, going back to that question, I know the business has to adapt, but in what extent and terms that they have to do that without compromising their brand values or identity?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Vince. There's a lot of underselling or a lot of overselling, right? Which is actually encompasses a lot of what we talked about earlier. So a lot of things happen in a market or industry all the time. So here is my advice. Do not adapt or change if your message or the message that you want does not fit into your roadmap or your values. Or if you don't have anything interesting to say, just don't say it at all, right? Let's think back to some of these blunders, right? Let's take the example of Pepsi. So about a year ago, they made a huge campaign flop, right? And that was featuring Kendall Jenner, right? One of the Kardashians, in a Black Lives Matter commercial when she was drinking Pepsi, and it was kind of, they thought, cleverly mixed in, right, with the Black Lives movement. That sparked so much outrage and backlash on every single platform that Pepsi did not expect that, and they did not even know what to do with all the outrage, right? And that was a poor take, right? If you can't find a way to mesh it into your messaging, don't do it at all. Now take Nike, for example, right? And we all know Nike's tagline, just do it. So during the Black Lives movement, I don't know if any of you remember, but they very cleverly marketed a spin on their tagline, which goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? That you don't necessarily have to have a precise tagline, right? You just have to massage it a little bit. And their spin on the tagline during the Black Lives movement was, for once, just don't do it. So that to me, I thought was brilliant, right? Consumers are so smart nowadays. They will literally sniff out authenticity in just a second, right? And if they get any inkling that you are trying to message something that you don't know about or that you don't stand by, you will face the same backlash that Pepsi did, right? Obviously on a smaller scale. So you also need to be the leader of that change creation, right? If you want to participate in evolving or a trend, take a unique point of view on the trend and tie it to your North Star. Whatever that North Star is in your business. Maybe that is acquiring new customers. Maybe that is retention. Maybe that's engagement. Whatever that North Star is. So change it if you want to participate. And if you truly can't find something creative or powerful, then my advice would be just don't do it at all.
Yeah. 100% agree with that. Yeah, let me take one of the questions coming from our participants, Setareh.
Sure.
And I think this is related to what we are talking about earlier. He has a question. This is the question. In terms of content consumption, we see companies churning out everything from a big fat ebook, white paper to a blog post or infographic. In your experience, which content type is best consumed or perfect for conversions? I think it's going to be for sales conversions, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. So this might be, again, another unpopular belief, but when you are creating content, everybody is used to platforms that are visual, right? And engaging. So Facebook, Instagram, all of that. So my recommendation would be create content that is visual. So a lot of those are ebooks and a lot of those are infographics. White papers are good, right? But that's very text heavy and very deep. And those are traditionally saved for more scientific or academic type of verticals. Videos are great, right? 1 minute, 2 minute videos, absolutely no longer than that. And my biggest critique here, and the most important piece of advice when it comes to content, is I see companies still publishing great content, but the mistake they are making is gating that content. Do not gate your content, okay? Because that is an added layer of friction in which you have the potential to lose a prospect or a customer before they have even engaged with you. So back maybe 5-10 years ago, it was really important. Gate content, let's collect the leads from it. But if you look at any of the data, and you can go back 5 years even, if you look at any of the data, there is nearly 0.05%, that's nothing, right? So not even really a full customer, that actually convert from people downloading their content when you have gated it to becoming a customer. The idea here in the modern marketing age is you just create good content and you make it available for everybody to consume in a very, very easy manner. Because I can guarantee you the days of gating content do not lead to your conversions. And look at the data and it will tell you exactly that. So create highly visual content, do not gate it, make it available for everybody, and let them experience the power of your thought leadership.
Yeah, speaking about you giving value to your customer, I think just like what you've said earlier, your content is your voice of engagement, and you want to make sure that you leverage that the same way that you would like the customer to, how they would like to engage with you. Thanks for that. That's a very good recommendation and suggestions. All right. So since we're talking about content and promoting education materials and sending over to sales, I'd like also to ask this because as a salesperson, we tend to use the marketing collaterals that being created by the marketing team. And sometimes we are being sales are trying to use this to leverage contact with their ICP, if you will. Now, walk us through in terms of creating a follow-up strategy. What would be the right follow-up strategy for the salespeople to engage with their potential leads? And then what's going to be how should we position that materials to our customers to appeal to their business needs or interests, if you will?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So this is very similar to what we talked about earlier, right? And I'm emphasizing that follow-up means setting yourself apart. So make a 1 minute video this time that shows me the challenges we spoke about and how you're going to help me solve them. Or point me to a case study that is similar to what I'm experiencing, right? In terms of a challenge from my business. Send me a blog in which you are proving that you are the expert in this and you have written a blog about a thought leadership topic that aligns with what I do or what is in my industry or the vertical, or a subject that aligns with the prospect's pain points, right? So better yet, you can even send me an email that is a testimonial from another customer and have them serve as a reference. We did something really interesting at one of the companies that I was managing, and we created a what we called a little digital room for our prospects and our customers. So what that was is everybody that we engage with, they had their own digital room created. And what that was is the digital room was filled with a 1 to 2 minute video on how we can help them based on the conversation, a potential variety of different pieces of content. So we would have a case study, a testimonial, or we would have, a PDF or an infographic, right? Various pieces of content that supported their challenge, right? And then last, we actually had a little chat area where as they are reviewing all of the information that we're giving them, they can easily chat us without having to get on the phone, without having to go through an email process. And what we found is it was a highly revisited little digital room where customers went, and we even went as far as putting a proposal in there for them, right? So the way that you leverage your content, right, it has to be educational, and it has to be in a way in which the follow-up supports what the prospect is trying to achieve. I think a lot of times here, and even my experience managing the sales teams, right, we tend to get very excited, and
Yeah.
we tend to just want to tell a prospect everything, right? Here's all of the things you can do. But the more you say, the more questions there will be. So you have to remain very focused on your prospect's challenge, how you want to solve their specific problem, how you've solved their specific problem before, and whatever content you have to support that, use it. If you feel like you do not have the precise content, then that's okay. Get on your iPhone, record a 1 to 2 minute video, and you create that content in a blink of an eye.
Very good advice. Thank you. All right. So I think that those are the questions and I'd like to cover, but I think there are a couple of questions from our audiences. Let's take about 3 or 4 of those questions. All right. So one question that I'd like to emphasize here, because this is really good. What methods do you use to gather insights about your audience's preferences, pain points, and behaviors? And probably to add that, how could you be able to connect that to the services or solutions that we offer?
Yeah, if you don't have like a big budget or a tool that does this, if you want to collect insights from your customers, all you have to do is get on the channels that your customers exist in, right? So you can participate in forums, you can participate in different chat rooms, you can run a LinkedIn poll, you can run a poll on, Facebook, or just a Q&A. So there's a lot of social channels in which they're cost effective and really easy to execute, that you can ask the exact question that you want the answer to, and let your community know that we want to hear from you, right? There's been a lot of times that I ran LinkedIn polls and used the responses from the various LinkedIn polls to then create content and pull that into a research report and say, hey, we asked, 300 marketers what XYZ is, right? And I took their answers and we turned it into a great piece of content. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and ask the connection, because the word insights literally will come from the insight of a person. And sure, you can use tools for social listening, right? You can use Sprout Social and a lot of other tools. But again, that type of tool and mindset will give you just the quant data, but it will not give you the qual data. So you want to use both and get creative. And there's actually like a lot of guerrilla marketing tactics that can be used here too.
Great. Thanks for that, Setareh. Yeah, coming from the horse's mouth, I think we need to get that. That's where we can be able to start building out, getting those insights. All right. You mentioned earlier about ungating content, because some businesses still doing this as a practice, that is still getting their content because they are afraid that if you are losing that kind of process, you would also see a decline in the leads coming through. So in terms of tracking and then ensuring that this process is done right, how would you, or what is your recommendation or advice on how to keep track on this kind of process or strategy that would not fall in the cliff, that they are not losing those leads, especially quality leads?
Yeah, so I think more important when it comes to content than measuring the actual quantifiable aspect of it, right? How many people downloaded it or how many people read it? You have to truly understand the impact of it, right? And the impact of it is how many people read that piece of content and took an action. Because there's a lot of people that will go read a blog. There is a lot of people that, will join a webinar. But you have to truly understand the impact of it, right? Which goes back to some of the data points that I've talked about. But depending on tools that you use, right, if you're relying on software for this, there's a lot of engagement metrics, right? And those engagement metrics, all platforms have them, from LinkedIn to Facebook to whatever your CRM is, right? Another great use of this, right, is a heat map. So if you have a heat map tool, there's some that are, $5-10 a month. Again, super cost effective on a smaller scale. You can scale up. That will actually visually show you what and where your customers are interacting with your content on your website, or maybe it's a specific page that you're looking at to measure. So here you want to go back to a couple of things. Rely on the software and the attribution and the metrics. Define what those metrics actually are. So if we say, hey, this content campaign that we ran was extremely successful. Well, what is extremely successful? Is that success we generated leads? Is that success we closed leads? Is that success we had marketing booked revenue? So you have to understand, what is the goal of your content and what are you trying to get the content to do? And the last part is, then you can actually take the qual and quant data, you can marry it together, and then you can begin to slowly unravel what the actual impact, right, of that content was, or that follow-up was.
All right. Pretty nice. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Setareh. I know there's going to be a heated debate in the marketing for the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years, because it's like what you said, we are also adapting to the changing business needs and also the consumer needs. Sometimes they don't want to put information right there because some customers would like to get an access to any kind of information or materials they would like to have an access with. Yeah, very nice. Thanks for sharing that. All right. Last questions. I also believe, and I've learned this in marketing when I do 101 way back then, that SEO going to be the foundations of anything that would help you to get into your customer's door. Now we have seen that there are changing landscape in terms of the Google, the algorithm, and stats. Now, if we would like to have a better results in terms of organic and inorganic way, and at the same time, would you prefer adding what you call the paid ads or the PPC, or would you like to have a different ways on how you could be able to put your services in front of your customers?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to this question, and both will be important, right? SEO is a very sustainable but long-term play. So if you are a business or a brand that can afford to wait 3, 6, 9 months for the full effect of SEO to happen, then you can just rely on that channel. But if you are not in the position, right, to be able to have a 3 to 6 month mark, then you'll have to supplement, right? And you'll have to find ways to close the gap. And one of those ways of closing the gap for many businesses is Google ads, right? So you can certainly run a set of paid ads. What I would recommend here is a lot of paid ads will take you directly to a website or a landing page. Now, what you could do here to be different than some of the other competitors in the market is direct them to a piece of content, direct them to a ebook, direct them to an infographic, direct them to maybe a research report that you did, right? So the second part of this is, in terms of like brand awareness, you always want to have some sort of visual and digital presence and footprint, right? Aside from SEO. So you want to also run ads as well, whether that's on LinkedIn or Google, or, you can even run Gmail ads. So you should also run those, because those are very top of funnel, right? It's very unlikely that somebody sees your ad on LinkedIn, they click and they become a buying customer. But if you do run those ads, you are front and center of their mind when they are ready to make that decision. Your brand has kind of already been, planting the seeds in front of their mind. So I would say you need a recipe for both. It it really depends on how critical and how timely are your goals. Do you have the runway to wait 3 to 6 months? And what does your current pipeline look like? Oftentimes, I've seen organizations where they want to really focus on SEO, but they see, my pipeline's dropping a little bit. Let's recover the gap. And they recover the gap by running a set of LinkedIn ads, for example, right? And LinkedIn, I really like because you can get extremely targeted within your persona, your job functions and roles, or even your industry. So the idea here is I would probably choose LinkedIn over Google Ads, but both should be ran together for a holistic marketing strategy.
Thanks for that. Thanks also for the one who asked that questions. All right, to wrap this up, Setareh, I think those are the questions I gathered from our audiences. So this can be my last questions, and probably we can end from here. So if you're going to start and hire new team, would you hire a sales team or someone from the content team? Because the reason I asked that, because a lot of the businesses that I joined with, they started hiring demand gen or part of the content team rather than hiring a sales team. If you are for your experience, how did you handle this kind of, I would say, in terms of promoting your services and building out businesses? Would you hire a sales team first or a demand gen that focuses on content?
Yeah, I would certainly, the answer is easy. I would certainly hire a content team or person above sales. Now, don't get me wrong, I love sales. I started my career in sales and it's necessary, right? But if you're in the position to have to choose, I would choose content because content is a salesperson. Content is talking about your product, your pain point, your value. Content is educating the customer so you can close the deal, and you can deliver content at every stage of the buying cycle, right? Where sales usually comes in very early, right? In the cold calling stage. Yep. Or when the deal is ready to close. So in between, what happens, right? In between is content. So content can serve the purpose of creating pipeline and closing pipeline as well. So I would pick content.
Love that. Again, Setareh, thank you for joining and also for gracing us your time today. Any last word before we close the webinar?
No, I appreciate all the questions. I've enjoyed having this conversation. If anybody would like to dive a little bit deeper, you want to brainstorm, I love talking about all things marketing. So I'm going to give you my email. So if you have a pen and paper, or you can find me on LinkedIn, please feel free to shoot me an email with any thoughts, any concerns, anything that you want to maybe brainstorm or dive a little bit deeper on. My email is setmot4@gmail.com. Again, setmot4@gmail.com. And I will most definitely get back to you. And I'm looking forward to having some of those conversations. Thank you for putting it in the chat for everybody. Again, Vince, I've enjoyed this time. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and working with you. I hope you all got some takeaways, and thank you so much.
Thanks again, Setareh, and everyone for joining the webinar. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.